attention up here, please. Right here. 5 seconds, right? Okay, 2.4, modeling quadratic functions. We're actually going to take a table now, and note you can use linear regression in this, or excuse me, quadratic regression. However, what I want to do is I want to show you how to use matrices today to solve these. Okay, so we could first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this info. Table shows estimated profits, Y in dollars for a concert when the charge is X dollars per ticket. Write and evaluate a function to determine what the charge per ticket should be to maximize the profit. Anytime you see the words maximize or minimize and you're dealing with quadratic, you should think what? The vertex. Okay? And if you're like, well, I don't even know that this is a quadratic relationship. Well, remember, if this is going up by a constant on your x, which in this case it's going up by 3, then your second value or your second difference should be the same. So 26 to 65 is 39, I believe. Check my work, right? 65 to 86 is 21. 86 to 89. 89 to 74. And 74 to 41. Okay. Now. Oh, thank you. What's that there?
Oh,
1800. How about there? And here? I think they're all negative, right? And hopefully 1800.
No, because you're doing 3 minus 1800.
Okay? So good. By the second difference, we know it's quadratic. What if it was only, what if it would have been, what if these would all have been the same? Be linear. Okay. Get it? Okay, so we talked last week that we could just plug these into our list features and use quadratic regression, which you could do. The other thing we could do is we could make 3 equations. We could say, I know that y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Correct? Okay, well I'm going to make 3 equations out of that. And in fact, rather than saying y equals, I'm going to take and erase that using my magic pen and write it equals y. And I'm going to make 3 different equations. So we're going to call that one y sub 1, ax squared plus bx plus c. We're going to call that one y sub 2, and ax squared plus bx plus c we're going to call y sub 3. Now, I'm trying to write a quadratic equation to model this data. What things do I need to know in order to write a quadratic equation using standard form? Tell your neighbor what things you need to know. Okay, now that you've talked about it with your group real quick, make sure that you did not use vertex form or intercept form. To use standard form, what are the 3 things you must replace with numbers? Volunteer? Yes? You need to know A equals, you need to know what B equals, and you need to know what C equals. So how many variables do you have? 3. Therefore, in order to solve for all 3 variables, you must have 3 equations because you have 3 unknowns. You have to do a system of 3 variable equations. Now, we did this back in chapter 1. How many remember doing systems with 3 variables? It was an amazing, joyous time. Okay? And everyone loved it. So, remember that when you're looking at a table, this is x, this is y. Is x always on top? Yep. Is y always on bottom? Yep. Okay? So, when I'm replacing these, I could actually say, well, if x is 2, then my y is 2600. So I have a coordinate right there, 2, 2600, which I could actually replace into one of my equations. So if we just kind of say, okay, I'm going to use that piece, I'm going to call this a times x squared is 4 plus b times x is 2 plus c times, what's c being multiplied by? Hey, let me pause because some of you may have missed this. This is x squared, right? So I'm taking 2 and squaring it, and that's 4. And this is b is x, so I just put the 2 in there. C is, what's next to the c? Yeah, if we don't see anything, it's a 1. Do we need the 1? Yeah, dude, you need the 1. Otherwise, you put nothing, which implies 0. That's bad. Okay? C times 1 equals, what's y? 2600. For that particular x, y is 2600. Okay? And then we do the same thing for the next value there. So we can take this one and we can now plug that in. Say, all right, what goes here? 25. Here? Is that always 1? Yeah, it's always 1. How boring. But that's okay. Okay, and I've lost my yellow highlighter. That's okay. We will circle it. That one there. Okay, what goes here? 64, here, here, here. Okay. Easy or hard so far? Easy. Any questions so far? Okay. Tell your neighbor what you think. About life in general.
About life in general, fair, but not something like that.
Okay, time's up. We're done thinking. Any other questions about it? Any questions at all? Okay, let's write this out. Now let's make these equations a little more, we want to write them so that they're normal. Rather than having A4, we usually write that as 4A. And rather than B2, we write it as 2B. Or not? 2B. And then we're going to write C1, or 1C, excuse me. I know we usually just write C, but we're going to write 1C, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And then 2600. Okay? So just write all those out. We have our 3 systems. A lot of times you write your systems with a bracket like there holding them together so you don't lose one. Like you're out hanging out with your other system friends. You don't want one to be left behind like Kendall was at the farm there. Sorry. All right? So, there we've got it. Now, from here, we just solve them, right? Here's where we'd say, well, this is the first one, the second one, or A, B, and C, but we probably wouldn't use A, B, C. Maybe use X, Y, and Z, and we'd solve our system by hand. Where you eliminate one of your variables. You guys remember all that, Joy? Okay. Rather than doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to create a matrix. Okay, not the movie. Okay, we're going to create a matrix of this. So we are going to set up our matrix so that we have our first equation, our second equation, our third equation. And in our matrix, we're going to make our first column of our matrix be our x squared value. Our second column be our x value. And our third column be our, the coefficient of c, which happens to be 1. And then our last column is going to be our y value. So really, what does that mean? It means you're taking everything that's in this, and what are you dropping? pluses and the equals and the variables. So I just want 4, 2, 1, and 2600. Everyone with that? So the next one, go ahead and write down what you think the next row would be. 25, 5, 1, 6,500. And then 64, 8, 1, and 8,600. How many are with me? We technically would call this an augmented matrix. Augmented means you'd have this little dashed line here that no one ever sees. It's just there. Okay? You don't need to know that term other than you might read about it one of these days, and all it means is that you had an equal sign and you've combined. You've put this part on the end. Okay? How many are still with me? Pretty easy so far? Okay. The dimensions of this matrix are extremely important. Okay? Tell your neighbor what the dimensions of that matrix are. Or is. Okay, so how many say 4 by 3? How many say 3 by 4? How many say something else? You've got to pick one or the other. Okay, how many say 4 by 3? 3 by 4? Something else. What's the something else? Something else? You're not sure? You're not sure? Okay, well let me tell you right here, these right here are just labels. You usually don't see these. I'm just having them there for your benefit. So this stuff right here in pink, that's not part of your matrix. So really your matrix has 4 columns, 3 rows. Or 3 rows, 4 columns. We express it as a 3 by 4. So what comes first, rows or columns? This is expressed as rows by columns. I like to think of it, it's really cool. Dude, that's really cool, right? Rows by columns, really cool. Some of you just don't get it, man. RC, really cool. Man. All right, you're like, I don't even care how cool it is. Okay?
Even though it's real cool.
It is pretty cool. Now you need to take your cool guy graphing calculator. You want to write down some of the steps. Okay? And here are your steps. Now, we're going to enter. I will actually write all these steps up here. I'll put them up here in a minute. Okay? And so I'll let you copy them down here in a minute, but for now maybe just follow along. Okay? So to enter a matrix onto your calculator, you need to go to the matrix menu. So search. Find it.
Oh. Got it. Got it.
Okay, so it's second x to the negative first. That shouldn't have been rocket science there. Okay, it's just second x to the negative first. Okay, everyone there? Okay, now we go to edit. So we have to go arrow over twice. Okay, and we're going to select matrix A. Just hit enter. Okay, you guys with me? What are the dimensions? 3 by 4.
This is so cool, McCoy.
It's really cool. Okay, so we're going to go 3, and you could arrow over. You could just go time, or no, I guess you have to arrow over 4. And then enter, and notice it makes your matrix. Now, some of you that have a different calculator, it doesn't show the whole matrix like that. Okay? So there you go. Now you enter your matrix. So this is where you enter all of that junk right there. Okay? So notice when you start entering, you have to push enter, and it brings you, it's going across a row. Okay? once you have it, you're just going to go second, quit, or second mode, which is quit. I don't condone being a quitter, but you have to quit out of the matrix. Okay? All right. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, just so you have it, there are your steps. Okay? To enter a matrix.
To enter the matrix.
If you want to copy them down, I'll give you a minute. Each line represents a different command there. Okay? Oh, there's. Okay. Hey, next piece. I'll put that back up there here in a while. Next piece, I want you to take your matrix that you're dealing with. Okay? I'm going to actually cover up the matrix now that it's in here. Okay? We're going to calculate our matrix. Actually, before we do that, let me explain what this is actually saying. This is in your calculator. This says 4x plus 2, or 4a plus 2b plus c equals 2600. So that means when you put 4 b's, or 4 a's, 2 b's, and 1 c together, you get this. If this said something like 0x plus 0b plus 1c equals 2600, that would tell me that c is 2600. That would be great if we could do that. In fact, we used to do that by hand back in the day. Now your calculator does that for you. It's called putting stuff into reduced row echelon form. Okay, and you can look that up later, and we can talk about that. If you really, really want to, I can give you some amazing problems for it later. But what we're going to do, yeah.
What would we title this? Like the last one was entering a matrix.
Well, right. This would be our reduced row echelon form. I'll put that title up here in a minute for you. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do second. We're going to go back to our matrix menu. So second, x negative 1. And this time we're going to do some math with our matrix. So we need to go to math. We arrow over once. We want it to go to reduced row echelon form. Now that's a long title. Therefore they abbreviate it as R, R, E, F. It's not REF, it's RREF. REF is just row echelon form. It's not reduced. It gives you one value. RREF, so on mine it's option B. RREF gives you all the values. So we're going to select that. Okay? We hit enter, and notice now it gives you this. Okay? And so we want to do reduced row echelon form of the matrix we just entered. So what was that matrix called? A. So if I select matrix again, so second x negative 1, and then I actually say, well, I want the matrix I entered. Now, you could have tons of matrices. I want matrix A, so I'm going to select option 1. Okay, and it's always good in math that you close your parenthesis, and then you hit enter, and it tells you. Now, read this off to your neighbor. What does that state? Tell your neighbor what it says.
That's cool.
Guys, before you start worrying about messed up calculators or not knowing, or you're like, I didn't get that answer or anything like that, just pause here and pay attention to what I'm saying here. This first one says, this says 1a plus 0b plus 0c equals negative 100, which really tells us what? A equals negative 100. This says 0a plus 1b plus 1 or 0c equals 2000. Or b equals 2000, and that last line says c equals negative 1000. So you better make sure you know how to read a matrix, because if it's a no solution, it's going to kick out a matrix, but it won't have the zeros and ones in the correct spot. Or it may have multiple ones. Okay? So if I'm writing this down now, this is A is negative 100, B is 2,000, and C is negative 1,000. We just found that using our matrix. Now we'll come back to that here in a minute. Matt?
Why would you use a matrix over quadratic regression?
That some people find the question why you use the matrix over quadratic regression. Some people just find it quicker than quadratic regression. Okay, if you're trying to solve a system of equations, you're not always going to have three. I mean, you could have. I know Mr. Allenson at the high school. I know one of his assignments for his students one day was like this, like having a 5-variable or 6-variable system.
He was telling me about that.
Okay.
The people who got it right, he said, just guessed and checked a lot.
Yeah, so that would mean that you'd have to have 6 equations. So using a matrix would be very helpful there. Okay? All right, so let me put up the steps here before we go into finishing this problem. There are the steps for reduced row echelon form on your right there. Okay? All right. Any questions there? Guys, once again, I'll put this back up here in a minute. Okay? Echelon? No. We could talk about the history of it here in a while if you want. Okay, right now I want to finish this problem. Hey, our equation. We haven't actually found the equation, right? We actually have to plug in A, B, and C. So negative 100 x squared. B is 2,000. 2,000 x. And C is negative 1,000. And all that equals y. Now I'm going to actually put the y or the f of x on the correct side. Okay, now it says write a function, so I guess technically we should use f of x there. Okay? So, we've got our equation now. It says determine what the charge per ticket should be. Charge per ticket is at our x or y value.
Wow, X.
What?
It's X.
X or y?
X.
It's x, yeah. So if I'm trying to find my vertex, I'm finding the x value of our vertex, and the x value is always equal to opposite of b over 2a. So negative 2,000 over 2 times negative 100, or looks like a $10 ticket would maximize our profits. All right.
That's a lot.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's see how well you understand it. Here's your next table. Number 7. While you're doing that, I'm going to hand out your assignment, but use a matrix to solve this one. Put this one in matrix B. Input this one into matrix B. Those are our decimals in between the numbers there.
Yeah, same.
Okay, if you're struggling getting started, there you got it. All right, how many haven't answered?
Almost.
How many have finished the matrix? You got your solution matrix. Solution matrix should be that guy right there. How much weight can be supported by ice that's 22 inches thick? That's dealing with the y value that time. So you're going to have to go one more step to find that vertex. Yeah, you guys don't have to find the vertex on this one. That's my bad. I didn't read the problem enough. But 22 inches thick, you just plug that in for x. So there's my equation. Plug in x, I get?
32.4.
Good. Make sure you label it's tons, right? 32.4 tons. Okay. Hey, how many are able to get it? Very good. Any questions? All right, so I've given you your paper. It's your assignment. Okay, notice the front side of this paper is really applying what we did in the first day of 2-4, where we used our what we know, what they give us, to write our equations. So you're either using vertex, standard, or intercept form. So you may want to write the three forms up here to remind yourself. Vertex, standard, or intercept form. Okay? You should know those. And then on the other side, you're doing a little more of that, but then you have your table down here also, where you can use one of our methods, linear or quadratic linear regression, depending upon if it's a quadratic, or your matrices. Okay, very good. Due tomorrow. Hey guys, can I have your attention up here just for one more minute? It won't take long, but when you guys go to plug in another matrix, some of you are going to be really annoyed that you have you're like, I want to use matrix A, and I've already got something in matrix A. So if you go back to edit, you can do two things. First, you could just scroll over and write over those numbers. You can change them, right? You can put whatever you want in there, okay? Or if you're like, I don't even like doing that, I'm type A and that bothers me, you could go to second memory, so second plus. If you go to second plus, it brings you to that menu. And if you go to memory management, delete, so number 2, you can select your matrix, which is option 5. And then when you see that matrix A has something in it, if you just hit delete, it deletes what was in there. And now if you go back to your matrix, that matrix now empty. Okay? That's for all you type A'ers that are really bothers. Okay. Those are your steps again today.